Amidst all of these developments, the Governors Forum has raised serious concerns about the feasibility of meeting these proposed figures, a warning of potential financial constraints. To unpack the implication of all of these proposals and what they mean for workers and the economy, of course, let me allow you to listen tonight to our conversation with the national chairman of the Social Democratic Party, Alhaji Shehu Gabam, who is live with us here now, Abuja. So thanks so much indeed.
Great pleasure.
For your time
Thank
tonight.
you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? We went to a turbulent past week where Labour went on strike, nearly disrupted all aspects of our lives because they shut down a whole lot of stuff, warning government and telling government of the need for government to stand up and come right and do their roles. But in all of this, what do you make of the conclusion of that negotiation? 62,000 on the side of government and organized private sector, 250,000. That is what the organized labor are saying.
Well, sure, let me thank you once again and to say clearly that part of the tragedy of our country and leaders is lack of sincerity. We are not honest with ourselves. We open so many fronts that we cannot contain. It's the same front we are opening, mentioning about state police, states that cannot pay salaries and other things. This government initiated this crisis by removing the fuel subsidy. And naturally, they don't need to be told that there are consequences that will follow. What we expected is that by the time government made up its mind to remove the fuel subsidy and the pains that will follow thereafter, the consumption rates and the supply rates and the demand rates of the nation, no one can stand it. You are paying civil servants and other private employees just 60,000 naira, 30,000 naira. And then when you go to the market, there is nothing of the lowest that you can get at the cost of 30,000 naira. And in that instance, there is no way the system cannot go on its knees, because it is close to impossible for individuals, workers, private individuals to survive under this kind of environment that had policies that have no human face, have not put a lot of consideration on how to keep the country together. The fragility of our economy, the fragility of the political space is better imagined. So our expectation was that government must face reality. The subsidy removal, the overtaxation of Nigerians, certainly, they cannot avoid this situation. And the situation is unavoidable. Unless the government accept the fact that what is your own statistics in terms of foodstuff in the market? What is your own statistic in terms of ingredients that family need to cook? You as government officials, how much do you spend in your own house to feed your family and extended family? The SGF of the Federation said that he cannot pay 100,000 to his 4 drivers. That's the Secretary of Government of the Federation. So you can imagine what people go through. And then you have a taxation policy of government that tax virtually everything. And then subsidy was removed about 400%. So for me, it's for the government to accept reality, face reality, deal with these issues quietly, and understand the fact that the purchasing power of an average Nigerian, not just civil servant, is close to impossible. And therefore, agree on a rate that is acceptable to everybody. For me, what I think at this stage, the government should go something above 100,000 naira.
That's what you think?
That's what I think. It's something that you can say is reasonably okay. Yeah. It makes a little bit of sense. People can breathe. People can go to work without thinking of sabotaging the institution.
But it doesn't look like federal government is going to do that, because what they have agreed upon, which I'm not sure whether the president will deviate or the National Assembly may deviate, and I don't know whether that consensus is made, because democratically speaking, if votes were being made, you would discover that Labour had the higher figure, but organized private sector and the government, on the other hand, they are in the majority, and they went with 62,000 naira. And there are those who will say, Mr. Gabam, that it's not only the issue of minimum wage, because your minimum wage, you're talking about just the lowest of the lowest person, which are now rare. You talk about consequential adjustment, which means that all through the ladder, if you're going to work at federal service or the state civil service, you're talking about from level 1 to up until the highest level of being the permanent secretary and the rest, that the consequential adjustment is a major issue, if not even the minimum wage.
Well, naturally, as a leader, when you are taking a decision that will affect the life of the people, you must also look at the consequences that they are going to face. If you are buying a fuel in your car, I don't know where you are staying, coming to Abuja, maybe a full tank, an average car can take about 40,000 naira. And if you move around within 5-6 days, the fuel is gone. You're not talking about other basic things that follows. I'm telling you what you need to move around.
So you're saying that the removal of fuel subsidy is fundamental and you blame the government for it?
It is a man-made issue. Since it's a man-made issue, they can adjust it.
How would they adjust it?
It's very simple. Look, it takes a great mind to accept that I have made a mistake. The presidency made a mistake by removing the subsidy without fallback position. So if you adjust this subsidy that you have removed, it's going to affect virtually the entire strata of the country. And virtually everything will be adjusted. But because there's no enforcement on anything, people do what they want independently without fear of anything. So the marketplace is open for every kind of people to create confusion, and then innocent people will be victims, because that is what is happening. Who is controlling the market forces? Who is controlling the supply forces? Nobody is controlling it. Nobody is applying any deterrence on it. And therefore, Labour are coming in at a time that the country needs some sort of stability. They need policy stability. They need political environment. They need security environment, to maintain what they have. The fragility is extremely very bad for the government to allow this to continue. The last strike that took place, billions or trillions of naira have gone down, both public and private sector. So how do you continue like that? If the government continues arguing along these lines without facing the reality, dealing with the facts available to them, and knowing fully well that people within the government are getting much, much more higher than regular people who go to work every day in the week, 5 times in a week, from Monday to Friday. Political appointees can skip any other day without going to office. But civil servant, if you skip any day, you are subject to punishment.
Is there something that, because the government had come out to say, we're making some strategic and deliberate move in making the lives of Nigerians better, considering the fact that their lives have been impacted by the removal of subsidy. They will say CNG, provision of CNG-driven vehicles are one way. The president has said, going forward, if you're going to buy any vehicle for government, it has to be CNG vehicle. Those who, they said that in agricultural sector, they've given fertilizers and other things to help farmers for better yield. They'll say that there are other welfare packages they are throwing out. They gave 35,000 naira wage award to workers. Government on their own side will say, yes, they are making some decisions to better the lives of Nigeria. But in your own mind, Alhaji Gaba, is there something that this government is missing that you think that they could be doing to get things better? Since you said they made a mistake, but I imagine that the likes of Peter Obi, the likes of Atiku Abubakar also made the promise that they were going to remove subsidy.
Well, it's not the removal of subsidy that matters. All the 3 factors you mentioned are something that they can manage. In the first place, when the subsidy was removed, the same government, same president make a pronouncement of vehicles that will ease the cost of transportation in Nigeria. Not just for civil servants, but the entire Nigerians. That has not been done. It's still perhaps under consideration, or the suppliers are yet to meet up with the demand as expected. Number 2, you mentioned the issue of agriculture. I don't know who have gotten fertilizer free. I'm also a farmer. A bag of a fertilizer is 45,000 right now. So you can imagine an average farmer who have a hectare to farm. Probably he needs 3 bags of fertilizer. 45 times 3. How much will it give you? How can they afford it? Now, apart from other labors associated to farming, if you're hiring agricultural equipments like tractors and what have you, what I did in my farm, I paid 200,000 naira to prepare my own farm, to hire a tractor. 200,000 naira. I'm supposed to buy 50,000 bags of fertilizer. How much is it? 45,000 naira per one. So this is the reality. Government have declared emergency on food security, but they have not made arrangement to complement the declaration. If you have not provided subsidy on fertilizer and tractors and other equipment that are needed to boost the agricultural sector, how will you help the agricultural sector? If people cannot get access to funding in the bank because of the interest rate, how will that help the agricultural sector? If the Ministry of Agriculture is not providing seed free for farmers, for better farming session, how do that help boosting the agricultural sector? These are facts that are available, that are on ground. They are not just theory. These are practical facts the government is facing. Now, if all those things have been made, the funds have been made available in the Ministry of Agriculture, we need to know where they have applied. The citizens need to know so that they can rush and go there and get it easy. As it is now, everybody's in the black market, and the government knows that. And the minister can come and verify or say otherwise. That is not correct. Let them say, these are the centers we have for fertilizer at the subsidized rate. These are the centers we have for seeds at the subsidized rate. These are the tractors we have at certain locations at the subsidized rate. These are facts that is associated.
What could answer for the continued hike or increase or the high prices of food products, which is probably a contributor to food inflation that we see? Those who will say there's food actually, but again, those who are selling are not managing the prices, and it's making it look like that we are in a food crisis situation.
To be honest with you, we are in a food crisis situation. This had been predicted even during Buhari's time, because this insecurity have affected the farming sector greatly. Farmers have developed fear for their lives. Most of them have abandoned their farms, or they found something not much, very little, that they can deal with. There is no security for an average farmer. And then the farmers and the hardest crisis have also greatly affected the production of food and supply chain in Nigeria. Anybody who tell you otherwise is lying. If you give anybody a contract to supply 2 billion naira rice in Nigeria, he cannot source it locally. It's practically impossible. That is the truth about it. And if they are denying, let them provide it where it is. The National Assembly members have been allocated truck of rice to supply to their constituencies. Do they get it? They used to do it in batches because it's not available. Now, there is nothing that stops government from putting a lot of resources in farming. Nothing stops government to go into conjunction with the states to acquire land and farm because of a rainy day like this. So, I'm a farmer, and I farm a lot, and I know what the farmers are facing. The economic situation is bad. It's extremely very bad. And if you have no access to funds to buy basic things you need in your farm, you certainly, sense of production will go down.
Alhaji Gaba, what do you think this government should be doing immediately? You've talked about how terrible and how bad things are, but what would you say that they need to start doing now to fix things? We've gone past the 1 year of this government in office.
What I think the government should do, I strongly believe in it. Government must immediately subsidize agricultural equipment. That is first. If they want this farming season to produce a food supply that will meet up with the population that we are producing, government must create an environment for farmers to go and farm and feel secured, and their farm will not be burnt in their stores. So that is number one. Number two, the government must look into the supply chain of the foodstuff. If you are supplying food to the market, the cost of gasoline for vehicles that use gas, not petroleum, you have to pay almost 5 times than the former cost you are paying. Because assuming you are buying a gas to your generator, what you used to buy something of 10,000, it has now gone to 40,000 naira. So bringing the goods from the location to the center is extremely very high. And then people have to engage other services to protect themselves, formally or informal way of securing their environment. So it's a multifaceted challenges they are facing, but they have to deal with the fact, the immediate impacts that affect the farming, that is the subsidy on fertilizer, agricultural equipment. They have to consider reviewing this subsidy. I've mentioned this severally. You can't get it right with the rate of subsidy the way it is going. You can never get it right.
When you say review the subsidy, are you on petrol you mean, right?
on petroleum, on gas. If you remember, Aliko Dangote mentioned to virtually everyone that he is reducing the cost of gas supply. But it has not come into effect. This is about 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Now, the petroleum product, the cost of it per liter is almost 750 naira. How many people can afford it? You know by statistics that a lot of people have kept their cars at home. They cannot drive there anymore. Because the cost of oiling your car to and fro, if you put 5,000 naira, assuming you live in Kado, bringing you to Abu, taking you back, the fuel is gone. So you are better off joining public transport.
So when you say review the free subsidy, are you saying they should bring it back? Government should continue to pay subsidy?
400% is extremely very high. When we were paying subsidy, when the fuel price, the liter was at 160, what we pay subsidy is about 5 to 6 trillion. That's what we pay subsidy as of then. Now, the federal government disputed what the Minister of Finance have said, that they are not paying any subsidy anymore. But it was on the daily, this day, that they are still paying subsidy up to 5-point-something trillion. But they need to explain all that. If you say you remove subsidy completely, and then the minister is saying that, no, we are paying. If he was misquoted, fine, he was misquoted. But if you are not paying, assuming, how much do you give to states? Now, this money, that chunk of money that you give to state, what impact is it making in the states? Why do you go into palliative that is not making any difference in the life of Nigerians? Instead of investing that money in farming, in transportation, in creativity, you are giving governors and they are taking away the money. The tragedy is that majority of the problem we're having today largely is from the states. The governors are contributing immensely to the problem that we're having today. And
I was going to also show you what the Governors Forum said about the minimum wage. And the Governors Forum, which of course is the umbrella body of an association for all the governors of the 36 states. And this is what the Governors Forum said. This was on Thursday. And they said, all things considered, this is part of the statement released by the Governors Forum. All things considered, the NGF holds that a 60,000 naira minimum wage proposal is not sustainable and cannot fly. It will simply mean that many states will spend all their federal allocations on just paying salaries with nothing left for development purposes. In fact, a few states will end up borrowing to pay workers every month. We do not think this will be in the collective interest of the country, including workers. The statement released by the Director of Media Affairs and Public Affairs of the Nigerian Governor Forums, Ajia Alema Salihu Ahmed. What do you make of that position? Because this is an official position of the Governors Forum.
I totally disagree with that. Any serious governor that put his priority right can pay 60,000 naira comfortably. In the civil service structure, both at the national and the states, if you know the number of ghost workers in the states that directly goes back to certain individuals, you will be shocked and you will be amazed. Any governor that is very thorough with his system and purge the entire ghost workers in the system, and you have effective civil service, is not the size that matters, it's the efficiency that matters. They can pay 60,000 naira comfortably without borrowing. If you look at their security votes, what they do with the security votes, if you look at other projects that they did that is completely insignificant, have not impacted anything on the citizens, what are they doing with the money? Now, the trillions that are being paid to the states, or the billions that are being paid to the states, take the number of civil servants in the states and equate it to the cost of 30,000 naira. How much is it? How much is a PAMSEC in the state being paid? When you get that figure, you know that they are not sincere with it. And we are not sincere about it. We don't want to solve the problem. We want to use it as a tool of distraction and making it close to impossible for anybody to.
All right, so I like you about there are small states and there are big states in terms of revenue and the monies in their purse. And there are those who believe, yes, there are some states. In fact, some states had actually come to this figure before now to say they've started, some states have already come up to say this is what they will pay. Lagos muted the idea, those states had gone ahead. But there are some states who are smaller, the federal allocation is very minimal, And there are states that have gotten up to 24, 25, 20 billion naira in federal allocation. Exactly. And there are some of them who have gotten about 3 to 4 billion. And they're states in the same state within the 36 states of the Federation. So there are states that have the capacity. There are states who do not have the capacity. Should this state be paying, have the same template of minimum wage, or cut your coat according to your size? Because the standard of living in Lagos, Port Harcourt, and other metropolitan states, you can't compare it to other states that are not as much as big.
What I think that is rational, you look at the size of your states, and the size of the state determines the number of civil servants in the states. And what are the priority areas? You deal with priorities. You adjust your economic structure, your internally generated revenue. These are the federal monthly allocation you're talking about. You're not talking about also the internally generated revenue. What are they doing with it? So if you have a state, assuming that have about 300 civil servants, 300 times 60,000, you'll get the figure. Now, that's aside. If we want to solve this problem once and for all, we have to amend the Land Use Act. We have to amend the Land Use Act. The protocol associated to Land Use Act must be removed. State must be allowed to generate revenue based on their natural endowment and pay percentage to federal, so that they will have sufficient resources to deal with their peculiarities, deal with their challenges, financial requirements, and so on and so forth. All right, these are openings that the federal can sit down and work with the state so that there will be influx into the states and stop producing lazy governance.
Yeah, let's conclude in 30 seconds. My question would be, don't you think there should be state minimum wage and federal minimum wage? Because federal government has its own workers, state has their own workers, so that each state can be able to take its own destiny based on its capacity.
I think the state civil servants are subject to the national union organizations because they need protection.
But the economy of each state is different.
Well, it is different, but then you have right now as it is, even when the salary is as low as 10,000 naira. Some civil servants are being paid 10,000, 20,000 naira. Some states don't pay salaries. It's there, you know it better. You have the statistics. So how do you justify that? They can afford to deal with it. We must be honest with it. We must deal with it holistically. The federal government must admit things are bad. You cannot be taxing people and you expect them not to. I saw one rascally civil servant who said that if you have access to money, you go and steal that money because he cannot feed himself, not to talk of his family. But this is the reality on ground. So the federal government must face that reality, deal with it in the most honest and sincere way. This is my honest advice.
The National Chairman of the Social Democratic Party, Alhaji Shehu Gabam, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much indeed for your thoughts.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, everyone. But when we return, a former National Vice Chairman of the APC, Malam Salihu Lukman, joins us, and he has written an article where he says the APC's failure needs to be curtailed. What does he mean by that? We'll be back with Malam Salihu Lukman's view on the state of the nation, the APC, and the Tinubu-led federal government. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's turn our attention now to some pressing political commentary from Malam Salihu Lukman, a former APC National Vice Chairman for the Northwest. Mr. Lukman has recently issued a stark warning about the current state of the nation, capturing widespread attention with his incisive critique. In his latest article, he does not hold back in expressing his disappointment with the APC's performance and the government's trajectory under President Tinubu. He believes so much that the president, with his track record as Lagos State Governor, will be able to do tremendous, but he seems to have a dwindling interest or belief in the capacity of the president based on what his article says. Mr. Lukman argues that the party is veering off course, failing to deliver on its promises, and risking the nation's stability with ineffective policies and governance. His remarks have sparked a flurry of debate within political circles and among the public, raising urgent questions about the future direction of the ruling APC and its impact on the country. Tonight, I'm being joined by Mr. Lukman Salihu, who is live with us here to tell us the implication of some of his views as espoused in his article. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Shegun.
I think I should get your views on what is happening in your home state of Kaduna. It looks to me to be a whole lot that is happening. Your very good friend, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, is in the line of fire, and the State Assembly had come out to say he has questions to answer. What do you make of the scenario playing out in your state?
Well, frankly, Sean, I think I have written about it about 2 months ago when it started. And my position is simple. I am for accountability, and that if it requires auditing all the loans that were collected in the last 8 years, it should be done. I mean, it should be done. There is no problem with that. But my major worry was that as a party, we seem to be just observers, and I feel having ruled for 8 years and produce a successor is not tidy to be fighting the way we are fighting now. My best case scenario will be internally inside the party, let's sit down. If it means crucifying Malam Nasru, we should first crucify him internally inside the party. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And there is no any other discussion going on, as I know, within the party in terms of even sitting these people. It's just the legislature that invited the people they wanted to invite, got their views and went public with it. But however, be that as it may, I want to really appeal that we need to really be much more focused. What is it that we want? If it is a case that it is established, money has been mismanaged, what can be recovered should be recovered. But we must not reduce it to cheap witch hunting as it is being projected now in the public.
Does it look like a witch hunt now?
I mean, sincerely speaking, that is what many people in the public, and I think for me, part of it is also to prevent a situation where it becomes media trial. I think we need to get the facts, sit down, and decide on how best to move with the thing. So
the spokesperson of the House was on this program, and he made some very categorical and far-reaching statements, because he said, according to the document and investigation they did, they found out that he said, according to him, and I quote him, in the 8 years of his reign, talking about Nasir El-Rufai, he said he single-handedly took $758 million US. If you come to Kaduna, over 60% of these projects have been abandoned, and it will take Kaduna State over 20 years to complete with what he left behind. Does that look like the scenario that is playing on in Kaduna State from what you've seen in the 8 years of Nasir El-Rufai?
Look. I mean, I don't want to speak on the detail because I have not gone through it. I don't have all the facts. But I can tell you that no doubt, there will be issues of accountability which Malan and his team will need to address. And we need to handle that in a in a way that we get the right result.
Is Malam Nasir El-Rufai still in APC?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, I think he is.
Because of the meeting that he's been having with SDP, I believe that you are very close friends with him.
I have made it public since I left, since I resigned from the National Working Committee. The only time I met Malam Nasru was when we went for the birthday reception of Chief BC Akande at the villa.
So you've not seen him in a long time?
No, we've not seen. We've not spoken, whether on phone or physically, we've not. So I'm not...
What would you... because you are an insider, you are a chieftain of the party in Kaduna State, exported for national prominence. But the question is, what do you think could have gone wrong between Malam El-Rufai and Senator Obasani?
It's an issue of manager relationship. Unfortunately, both sides have not manage things the way it should be. I have read this thing over and over. You remember even the last time I was here, even in the context of Kanu. I mean, part of the problem of our politics is poor management of relationship. We are in the mess we are in as a nation, politically, whereby our democracy has become a joke because it's not all about relationship. It's just about grabbing power for whatever it is. I mean, look.
In less than a year, Malam Lukman, the fallout came.
It's predictable.
And you imagine that Malam Nasir El-Rufai single-handedly determined who is
you see,
a similar thing happens in other states,
please.
Peculiarity of Kaduna, isn't it?
Sincerely speaking, I don't want to go into detail, but I can say some of the things are predictable.
Really?
They are predictable because...
On the side of El-Rufai, on the side of Sanitary...
On both sides. On both sides. You know, and some of it is not even the two of them. It's basically people around them. And the question of how you manage that should have been the responsibility of the party. Part of the problem is, look, Malam Nasru has his strengths and weaknesses, and his public knowledge most of the thing, you know. And for me, what I think as a party we should have been doing will be to use the tenure of Malam Obasani to strengthen to ride on the strength of Malam Nasru and deal with those weaknesses. If the issue of accounting for this loan is part of the way of dealing with the weaknesses of Malam Nasru, I'm for it, but sincerely speaking, I feel we can do things better, we can manage it better, you know. This thing cannot be resolved through the way it is going. We need to sit down.
All right.
You know.
Let me take you to your article. And you have sort of now become a compass in dissecting the heart of issues in the APC. You are worried. And it took me almost 2 days to finish reading your article. Started halfway, gone halfway again, went back to it. And you are one person. You've spoken to me about President Bola Tinubu, whom you were not in a doubt as to the capacity of President Bola Tinubu in delivering on the promises, on giving Nigeria the very best of governance. And you've made the Lagos sample of what President Bola Tinubu did as a governor, that it will bring it to bear. But you look to me that you are disappointed. You look to me in your article, except if you're writing and your views are different. But it doesn't look like it looks like you have changed your mind, or your views or your thoughts have changed.
Look. If you remember, as far back as I think August last year, I wrote an open letter to Asuwaju where there is disturbing signals. And I followed that through up to the last article which you are now referring, by making appeals publicly. I have hope I will have the privilege of meeting him. Unfortunately, I have not had that privilege. Understandably, I don't earn his attention. But the key point, I didn't start today. You know, my activism go back to the military days. We know exactly what we wanted in fighting for democracy, in fact, campaigning against the military to go back to the barrack. And of course, we made our own blunders, because when the democracy came, we were suspicious. We didn't participate at the beginning. And that created the gap, whereby, you know, at the beginning, parties were shopping for candidates, you know, and we all stand by because we didn't even think the democracy would last. Now, here we are, and shortly after, from 2003 to 2007, we saw the damage, how it became almost like garrison. The question of political competition was completely destroyed, you know, and that is what led to the whole campaign. Some of us at that time, we discovered our mistake and decided to consciously go into politics. And when we went into politics, after 2011 election, we discovered that, look, defeating PDP is going to be impossible unless the opposition parties are able to merge. I will say, I won't credit myself to say I'm the first that started the campaign for merger, but I'm among the first, and I was active in that. So we were clear in terms of the kind of party APC should be. We saw the weaknesses of PDP. Apart from imposition of candidates, part of the problem was that elected candidates are not accountable to the party or anybody. And we thought building the APC will depart from that, which was why the slogan came, change. Of course, at that time, the national temperament was in favor of defeating PDP. So we succeeded. Of course, and which is why in that article you referred to, I have to take us back to the Buhari days, because part of the problem we have damaging the party started under Buhari, really. It's not the...
Buhari really damaged your party?
It's not really Asuwaju, because the whole question of having a president who is like an emperor, and in the case of Buhari, because of him being almost the singular electoral asset of the party in terms of winning election, it was almost impossible to differ with him. So everybody, but we were hoping with Asuwaju things will start changing. And you saw, I apply myself, the campaign to get Abdullahi Adamu out and Naomi Shure out of the party was my singular handwork. I started it. And nobody pushed me. Nobody pushed me. I started it based on the commitment to ensure that the party really become what it is, return to the vision.
But 11 years after your party came into force, you say that there is nothing really has changed and a kind of difference.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Look, let me give you instances, Shehu. We are having a party which, since its formation, some of the organs have not been convened. We are having a party which, for 1 year, no meeting has taken place, and that party is controlling government. What is the main function of a political party? The main function of a political party, apart from presenting candidates, is to aggregate interests of people and get government controlled by the party to reflect those interests. Is it what we have now? And for me, part of the thing which you have not highlighted, which is one of my major issue with the Asuwaju presidency, is the clear outlook it is having now, being an extreme right-wing government. Why did I say so? I give you a typical example. We have some of our major problems, insecurity. Okay? This is an issue that made us even popular to win the election in the first place in 2015. It has gotten worse between 2015 and now. Let's not, let's not window dress it. It has gotten worse. Now, there is the problem of out-of-school children in the north. We're talking of more than 10 million. Now, when we were debating the merger, when the debate about the manifesto of the party was going on, the conception was that the party is going to be social democratic in orientation. And a social democratic party, the priority is on issues of health, education, and social services.
So your party has deviated from
it. It has deviated.
And even under this government.
Of course, and even under this. Now, let me give you a...
Just a moment. Let me pause it for a moment, because we need to take this break. And when we come back, you will espouse more on what you mean by that. After this break, everyone. Join us again. So much. Malam Salihu Lukman, a former national vice chairman of the APC, has been speaking with us on the state of the APC and how it affects governance under President Bola Tinubu. Thank you so much indeed. So you were explaining that under President Tinubu, you thought, I mean, one would imagine he was one of those who crafted or brought about the idea, of course, coming from the ACN wing, about this left of the center philosophy and ideology of how to run a political party and governance. But you said all of a sudden they're looking more like a PDP that is right of the center.
No, that is it. That is it. And I am trying to give you the instances. One, take the case of the only thing that we can say in APC, we do, qualify us to earn the credential close to social democracy was the initiative of social investment. Now, we poorly manage it. Problem of corruption now under Aswaju. So far, it is suspended because the minister is suspended and almost everything appeared to be suspended with respect to social investment. But when you look at some of the key decisions taken by this government, one of which is the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, you look at the amount of money, we're talking of 15 trillion, about 15 trillion naira that is going to go. You ask yourself, given the challenges facing this country, is that the right priority? Imagine you invest 15 trillion naira in equipping our armed forces and trying to recover all the ungoverned spaces in the country. Imagine you invest that in terms of building classroom block and recruiting teachers. You know, now we talk about this statistic of 10 million out-of-school children, but we do nothing. If, for instance, we are now going to mop up and the state of some of these classes, I mean, you check online, you see, certainly they are anything but classroom. Many of our schools, you see a school with more than 500 pupils with only one teacher. And look, even the debate about minimum wage, almost every day on national television, see Aswaju himself expressing commitment for a living wage. Now, I have written before to say, well, look, this thing is not rocket science. All you need to do is to begin to think creatively in terms of expanding the capacity of government to generate more revenue. It's tied to the question of productivity, and it's tied to the question of new opportunities you are going to create. If all you do is to live based on the present, based on what you have at the moment, then your capacity to increase the wages of workers will be...
You wrote quite a lot and you mentioned very much. But let's assume for a moment that those who are in government and your party APC and President Bola Tinubu is watching, one thing that you have always done is to identify the problems early enough and say, these are the problems in our party, let us fix it. That's what I imagine that you always do. If the president is watching right now, to conclude your thought, what do you think should be his immediate action so that it can look like the Bola Tinubu that you used to know in Lagos?
First, look, let's not mince words here. Immediately, he has to reorganize the people around him.
Like the cabinet?
Yes. Certainly.
Or his kitchen staff?
Both. The Tinubu that runs Lagos is not the same Tinubu that is running Nigeria now.
Based on the people he has around him?
Based on the people he has around him.
In terms of quality?
In terms of quality. The people around him now don't appear to me as people who can stand up to him and tell him, no, you can't do this. That is what he had in Lagos, which made him thick to get the mileages he got that won him, qualified him to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that is one. And he has to really open himself that some of us have criticized him does not make us enemies. And that some of us are outside government does not make us weak. I mean, look, for me, after spending 1 year, I have not died, and I mean, I'm still who I am. If all the recommendations, the advices one give is falling on deaf ear, then we go back to the trenches and start mobilizing the same way it was almost, people thought it was impossible to confront, for instance, the military. We did so successfully. When we started campaigning for merger, people say it's not going to work. The merger will crash. Merger didn't. By the time the merger succeed, the next question was that, the next issue was that we are going to, our leaders will crash the merger because we will not be organized enough to present a candidate.
So you send a threat out, and you say that if the words and the advice are falling on deaf ears, you will not mind to join those who will come together?
For me, at the moment that is, look, I would lie to you. I have made those statements. The next thing will be to now start looking for people of like mind and begin to discuss in terms of what initiative can be possible. Certainly, for me, whatever initiative that will be considered has to be one that will arm us, which was why I made the point we are not going to reduce ourselves to get to 2027 only to queue behind a candidate. That is what we did with APC.
All right.
Queue behind Buhari and Asuwaju and trusted them with that, and we got to this point.
Malam Lukman, Saliu Lukman, a former national vice chairman of the APC. Thank you so much indeed. It's always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much indeed. That's our show for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing, 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.